a truncated.
Actually, we're
Oh,
recording
here
it
it
now.
goes. It says recording in progress. Okay.
I don't know what's
Well,
happening.
we'll try it again. We were talking about the police attitudes and what have you, and you were saying that that you've gone to talk with police officers and they robotic.
We're going to do a whole other show now.
I guess I could be a little tense. Yeah.
Because talking about not knowing technology, I have no idea what just happened.
I have no idea what happened either. I just did a speed test and I'm at 89 download and 12 upload, so that should be perfectly fine. So
Okay, well, again,
sorry, folks.
Let
me get a little water here.
And your side is, well, let's do another half hour because we could do another half hour easy.
Here we go.
But anyway, what were we talking about? Are we talking about the police? Yeah, again, from what I see, it's not to to defund them, it's to reorient them. And some of the things which that they shouldn't, like, domestic problems, that's not a police thing. That's sort of a someone who's trained, but not a policeman per se, because they know nothing about domestic problems. They have problems with their own wives.
Well, you realize that domestic, but those are the most dangerous for any police officers, the domestic violence situation. And yeah, I think, once again, I think that it's been overdone based off the situation with George Floyd, which was just absolutely horrendous. The other thing that, and maybe you can enlighten me, why did Derek Chauvin kill George Floyd? Do we have a reason as to why he did that?
Do I have yeah, because he basically had not been trained, because he basically hadn't been trained right. And he thought that was his function as a policeman.
I mean, did they know each other?
As far as I know,
I had heard that they knew each other. Is that what you heard?
No. It's I heard they might have run across each other, but I don't think they had any sort of relationship or any bad problems with each other.
Okay. Well, the whole thing was just appalling. Absolutely, completely, utterly.
Again, from what I figure out, number one, George Floyd was black, and I think a lot. I think of a lot of his racial, because I think the police have an attitude is them against us, and the police band together, and it's black folk, and they're the ones that do bad things.
I don't. Well, part of me, I mean, I'm just. For example, Tim Scott, our black senator here from South Carolina, it indicated that he had been stopped 7 separate times by police officers. I don't know whether they were Capitol Police or whether they were regular police. I fault him at this point for not telling people and shouting it to the rafters that he had been stopped. And we got to know about these things to be able to cure and stop the problem. I think this whole idea of systemic racism is a bunch of bull. I do think, though, that if you allow things to continue the way they are, we're looking towards a race war. And I hate to say it that way. I remember my late husband, Tom, talked about his worries about a race.
I think it's more, I wouldn't say, I call it, instead of racism, I don't know if it's the same.
Go ahead.
I think it's racial profiling.
Very, very, very possibly. Very possibly. I just, we have got to start talking to one another. It's interesting because our next door neighbor, his wife is very ill and had to go to a VA nursing home. And he's black, John is black, and Anne is white. And it was very interesting because before she went into the VA hospital, there were a number of black attendees would come in, and I shouted over to John, everything okay, and what have you. And, we make sure that he gets plenty of fresh eggs because we've got hens and, because we're neighbors, for gosh sakes. But it was very funny because the gentleman who's black, who was in to check on Anna, said, how nice to have neighbors talking to one another. And I said, that is the way it needs to be, period, end of story. It has nothing to do with race. It has to do with the fact that we are neighbors. And he and I both gave a thumbs up on it. And it's that sort of an attitude that I'm tired of listening to the news media perpetuate this situation where blacks hate whites and whites hate blacks. It's not the case in our particular, and I know it's a small story, but it's an important story. And it's an important situation where we need to be able to recognize America is the greatest country in the world. And we do it here because we have independence, we have strength, and we look towards the merits of individuals and people. And for example, I am just appalled by the crime wave that's going on here. And as I mentioned again, Greenville is starting to see it where we have not seen it before. And it doesn't make any difference whether the individual is black, white, brown, yellow, I don't care. Once again, we cannot be releasing people, and we're not doing here in Greenville, releasing people on their own recognizance for crimes that are committed against the rest of us. And we've got to stop this. This cannot be a political situation. This is not a Democrat. This is not a Republican. This is an American issue. And we need to stand firm. Stand firm. And stand
Okay,
together.
I have a question. If somebody is wealthy, right, and they commit a crime, should they be given bail or should they be forced to stay in jail until their trial comes?
It depends on the nature of the crime. If the nature of the crime is murder, I cannot see releasing that particular individual. If the nature of the crime is selling marijuana, I don't see that as a violent crime. Do I see petty theft as a violent crime? Once again, if people are endangered, it has to do with the absolute endangerment of an individual. And if that person, the criminal, the so-called criminal, the defendant, is going to go out and perpetrate this again. I mean, you see it all the time now in New York City, for crying out loud.
Well,
People riding bicycles and being beaten silly. You see little old ladies, women, this Asian woman who was pushed over and she died because of the fact that she was given a concussion. Those individuals apparently had done this more than once. They had attacked people more than once. What the devil are they doing out?
Well, it's a physical thing, then it's okay. Then I agree with you. They shouldn't be put on bail. But if it's well, the problem is it's what becomes a misdemeanor, what becomes a felony. Like they were talking. There's a story on about the shoplifting, and it seems that they raised the amount that people can shoplift, and it was only a misdemeanor. So like,
and what do you expect people to do? And they're going to go in and just completely throttle the store.
Right, and some of them knew what the price tags are. You know, they added it up, and they knew that it was under $500. It was fine. I agree with you on that. It should be, they shouldn't be, or actually, the first time that maybe they'll let out. The second time, they should be jailed.
Absolutely. We had some petty theft. We had some petty theft here with some teenagers who were going in and raiding unlocked cars. Fortunately, we had cameras here. We have cameras here all the time because that's
everybody has cameras.
And the cameras were used to go ahead and take the kids into court. They managed to find the kids and all of that. And bottom line is, these kids are being taught to go ahead and it's okay to commit these petty crimes. It's not okay. They're better than that. And in fact, the mother of the leader of the group, when the police officer asked whether or not the kid, should be sent to jail overnight, you know what the mom said? The mom said, this has happened 3 or 4 times. And guess what? The kid went to jail. And the police officer called me and said, I can't believe this, but the mom said, put him in jail. He needs to understand that. And I'm hoping it scared him enough. Well, the old idea, scared straight, to have him realize, you don't do this sort of stuff because it continues. These types of crimes continue to build. If you're not stopped, you continue to build. And then soon enough, you're doing such things as attacking little old ladies in New York City. You're beating somebody senseless.
Well, who was it? Barbara Boxer was just attacked. I think they stole her pocketbook. And Boxer must be well into her 80s.
Yep. Yep.
For those who don't know,
And I gotta tell you,
she's a former US Senator from California.
yeah, and she obviously was targeted because she was older and they stole her cell phone. And at this point right now, I mean, San Francisco is going nuts, and so is Oakland, so is New York City. And it just, once again, we cannot have this continue.
But there has to be a medium point because there's inequity. There are people who are poor, whether they black, white, or Latino, who do petty crimes, who've been in jail and been in jail for months without having a speedy trial, and they have no bail money.
Can I ask you something? I understand, but what I don't quite understand is, why do we give a pass to anybody who has committed a crime? Have you committed a crime that you could be incarcerated?
Maybe a white collar crime, but
Okay, and I have
as
kind
far
of
as I
avoided,
know, no.
I've kind of avoided that. But once again, to be able to give a pass to individuals because they're quote unquote poor, I mean, that is once again what Charles Payne he's a business guy on Fox Business. He's talking about the bigotry of low expectations. We have low expectations for individuals like this. That's baloney. That's baloney. And to allow them to go ahead and commit quote unquote petty crimes, you're saying, oh, well, I'm sorry, you're poor and you really need to go ahead and steal these things.
No, the question I have is not that they should be able to do it, is should a person be put in jail for being arrested but not have gone on trial? In other words, we don't know whether they're guilty or innocent. They're presumed innocent until proven guilty. But a lot of these people, and especially minority groups, who've been arrested, they don't have money for bail, and they stay in jail. While people that do the same crime, who have money, pay the bail, and they're out waiting the trial.
I don't mean to because I respect you, Malcolm, but I think that is an urban legend. I do believe that if there is a situation where a person has been endangered because the defendant has done something to endanger an individual, they should not be given bail. They are a danger to society, and perhaps a danger to themselves. If you have minor situations, quote unquote, minor situations, perhaps maybe shoplifting, something along those lines, I could see people being, if they were like first or second offense, being released on their own recognizance. But if you have a serial criminal who continues to shoplift, who continues to brandish a weapon when he or she robs a liquor store, even though it's for 20 bucks, I don't think that you should be allowing those people out. I think it has to do with the nature of the crime, if it's violent, and then the number of times that individual has continued not to understand, you don't do this. You don't do this. So that's where I stand.
I totally agree with you.
Good. See, we have a lot of agreement.
Right.
We have a lot of agreement.
I mean, there's no one way fits everything. You have to use judgment, and it has to be.
And that's not happening in New York City, and it's not happening in Los Angeles, and it's not happening in San Francisco.
Not happening any place.
No, it's not. But judges need to have that ability to make that decision as to whether or not, and in many cases, unfortunately, for example, in Los Angeles, because you have the city attorney allowing, for example, recognized gang members to go on their OR, on their own recognizance. That's baloney. That's baloney. That endangers the rest of us. And government is there to be able to protect us from individuals like that.
Well, the problem is that organized gang members don't do petty larceny. They do major.
Well, then why are we releasing? Well,
we shouldn't.
That's right.
That's what we're just talking about.
Once again, many liberals, many progressives are saying, oh, we should open up the jails because these poor people,
I'm not talking about poor people. I'm talking about people who commit something that are put in jail and they can't make the bail.
We're the same. First time a nonviolent OR.
Right.
If it's second, third, fourth time, keep them in there. They haven't learned.
But that's not it. At the first time, they still are put in jail. And jails are not run by the city. Jails are private organizations. Jails are private corporations that the city pays for. Well, a lot of them. I don't know all of them.
Once again, judges should be able to go in there and say, it's your first offense. Going to see you back in court. I'm going to release you on your own recognizance.
But then again, that's if we have wise judges. Well, so sometimes judges are sort of they are into their own power. They're power hungry.
That's true.
And they don't relate to people. They relate to that they sit on the bench.
And in many cases, they don't relate to the Constitution. So we're seeing, as I say, LA, you've got a real serious problem there with a progressive city attorney, and you've got a number of progressive judges. And I do know, and I have friends that are still in Los Angeles, and they're afraid to go out. They're afraid of the rise in crime, and that's negligence of government.
I mean, there are a lot of reasons for a rise in crime. It's not only liberal laws or liberal judges. There are part of it is the pandemic. Part of it is the society, and I hate to say, it's the environment that we are in, and the environment that we're in is us against them. I mean, that's
who's the us?
I don't know. It's us, the people who. They're two different groups. I mean, us and them, it switches around. Sometimes we're us, sometimes we're them. There's no specific area, but if you have money, it's always a better society for you. And the more things you could do, the more benefits that you have versus if you're poor. But it reminds me of, I forgot who told the joke. I think it was Dick Gregory, who was an observer of mankind, and he said he met two people, two black guys in jail, or no, one black guy in jail, and he said, how come you're in jail, and why did you go that way of crime? He said, well, what do you expect of me? My mother was a junkie, my father left. All I had was to live on the street, and this is how I grew up, taking advantage of that. And then there was another black guy, black attorney that he met. And he said, well, how come you became an attorney and you're doing so well? And the guy said, well, my mother was a junkie. My father left me, and I vowed never to be like that. And I could pull myself up by the bootstraps. So again, it's based on the individual.
It is. And I know you watch Charles Payne on business. It's very interesting because his father left the family. He was the eldest of 3 children. They ended up having to move to Harlem. Very, very tough life. And he vowed that he wanted to become a stockbroker, and he vowed that he would manage to get out of the poverty and the cycle in Harlem, and he has.
Right, and, that's in my story that Dick Gregory told you. It's everybody takes it individually, or as you say, personal responsibility.
Well, here in America, the opportunities are just are endless, and there are certainly some areas where we need to work on. That's the whole issue, but the opportunities here. That's the reason people are flooding up from the south, from those countries, going through Mexico and coming to us. And we should be extremely thankful for what we have here in America. I just want to make sure that we maintain our situation so that we're not going ahead and spreading this COVID situation. I want to make sure that we're making sure that we have the America that needs to stay as free and as independent and as full of democracy as we have right now. It's interesting. I went to a seminar, a class. I was invited to this class on this last Saturday. It was about 24 people that were there. And the instructor was talking about how many of the totalitarian societies managed to keep control of their people. And I thought it was very interesting because, of course, I immediately said, well, we all looked around at each other and said, well, it's got to be the military. That's how they maintain the control. And he brought up a very interesting point. He said, no, how they maintain control is that they convince their people there in the country that it's hopeless, that there's nothing they can do, that they have to accept their lot in life. So once again, I find it very interesting when you look at someplace like Cuba. And at this point right now, the demonstrations, I understand, are still continuing. They've been going on now for 3 weeks, where people are now saying they're not going to accept their lot in life. What I saw during this class, getting back to the class, I saw 24 people who basically had said, well, there's nothing we really can do, until when we all left the class, we all vowed to realize there is something that we can do, something that each and every one of us can do. We can become more involved with our local government, with our county government. And as a result, I am going to become more involved with local and county affairs.
Can I become your campaign manager when you run for city council?
I would love that, although it'll be interesting. I might actually run to be a supervisor, which would be very, very interesting, because I certainly don't want them cutting down any more of these bloody trees around here. It's beautiful here in Greenville, but they keep cutting down the trees, clear cutting. It's awful.
Well, that's a thing, the urbanization versus keeping the character of a town. And the people who want urbanization say, well, it's development. We want new businesses coming in, and we're going to build apartment houses where there were small things. But anyway, I don't know whether any of this is going to get on.
Who knows? But we've had a good conversation.
Right. This is our conversation, just so we can see each other.
Absolutely. Absolutely. But you know what? We really do we have different views of things, but we do come to a common ground. I think you're as concerned as I am with the number of people coming across the border that have not been tested for COVID.
Right.
I think we're coming to common ground when we talk about the crime wave situation, where in certain cases, go ahead and let people be released on their own recognizance, but in other cases, keep them away from the rest of us.
It's the individual.
Don't police.
No, restructure them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And see, we are in agreement. This is a way of getting there. Is the question.
We're getting there.
Okay, kid.
We're getting there.
You have a great week. I'll see if I can piece something together. Also, take a look into my problems as we talked on the other part of the show, which might not get on, or we might get both shows on.
Oh, that sounds great.
Did you realize that on this segment of the show, we've been talking about 20 minutes?
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
I don't know if heaven has anything to do with it, but send my love to Fish. I'll speak to you next week.
And my love to Anna. Bye-bye now.